Well, good morning, one and all. You join us back again in the GT Cup Europe Championship ahead of qualifying one of the weekend. We arrive at Hockenheimring in Germany for round 3 this season, and we're going to be in for a real treat, I think. After we touched down in Portimao to kick the campaign off and running, we then arrived at Spa, and now at a very different circuit where elevation isn't much of a concern, with a very, very flat track layout here at Hockenheimring that has really seen some changes since it was opened up on the 29th of May of 1932. But at the moment, the championship is pointing in the direction of Ian Rodriguez and Luca Franca, but only by a slender margin. 10 points sit between them and Ludovico Longoni and Pietro Armani, with also Paul Meyer and Laura van den Hengel returning after 2 close calls in Portimao and Spa-Francorchamps that could have easily seen them as overall race winners. They do still arrive as the Pro-Am Championship leaders at the moment. But we have still got a fascinating story to tell. Hockenheimring, the final of a triple header that takes us through before we have a small break till Paul Ricard. But it's going to be, I'm sure, a very, very big treat. Weather has been asking questions right through the course of the weekend so far, with Thursday offering a combination of wet and dry running. Still many questions to be asked as to how it's going to fare over the next 2 days. George Morgan back in the commentary box, and joining me once again after a break, it's Chris Stevens. Welcome back, Chris.
Yeah, don't roll out the red carpet or anything. It's good to be back. I wish we could have come back with some slightly nicer weather. It's that horrible mugginess, especially yesterday. It was so humid. You want the rain jacket on, but you also start boiling. And it was really not nice conditions at all, really, for the drivers to have to go out in with that mixture of wet and dry. And we didn't really get a clear picture at all as to who is quick. But then that keeps things interesting for us as well, doesn't it? As Franville Bugliotti makes his way down towards the hairpin, that screaming flat 6 Porsche, of which there are 18 on the grid for this weekend, joined by 6 Ferraris, 1 Lamborghini Super Trofeo as well, for a 25-car field. Around this 4.574 kilometre circuit, just over 16 minutes on the clock. The drivers are building up to their first laps of the campaign. Just a reminder, going into this weekend, it's Ian Rodriguez and Luca Franca who lead the overall championship by 10 points to Ludovico Longoni and Pietro Armani. In Prime, you mentioned Laura van den Hengel and Paul Meyer. They are running away with the Pro-Am Championship at the moment. 6 points clear as well, having won 3 out of the 4 races so far. The only dent in their mark is the dent they left in the barrier in Portimao, which wasn't really Laura's fault, we should point out as well. And in fact, I was there last week. You can still see the big mark that they left in that barrier.
They were innocent bystanders in that unfortunate moment, but of course things can get a little bit harem-scarum, and they certainly were in race 2 at Portimao, but they have since recovered, had a brand new car coming into the Spa weekend that managed to attain them Pro-Am victory once again for the second time this season. On top of that now, ushering yet more points in their direction in terms of the overall championship, which still means that they are sat 3rd at the moment. And you never know, with the twists and turns that we see through the course of a season, especially given the pace that Paul Meyer has shown, there is plenty on the table still. And obviously Laura van den Hengel getting rewarded for her fine efforts over the last couple of years in this championship, and now part of the Iron Dames team as a whole. So he's getting a wealth of support from them, and I'm sure she'll deliver many, many grand performances in the many races to come as well. We've still got, including this round, 4 to go before we decide who is going to be champion.
Yeah, I'll just wrap up as well as remind you that Dieter Schweppes and Leandro Martins and the LMR Porsche leading the AM Championship after a series of second-place finishes and finally bagging that first win last time out at Spa. He's on board with Davide Scanicchio, his teammate Fabio Babini, still dual campaigning with GT Open. That looks like a front-left puncture, though, for the number 43 SP Racing car, and it's Luca Maria Attianese, who is going slowly around turns 8 and 9, and we're going to get a good look at it here. And that front left Michelin
looks sick at the moment,
has gone pop.
Yeah, unfortunately, and you can just see the alloy basically running at the moment. You just barely see it as it trickles through the final sector. So
was it one of the SP cars that had a blowout going into Pouon last time out?
I believe it was coming into, yes, I believe so. Looking back, so again they're facing more trials and tribulations this time around here at Hockenheimring, which is less than ideal. As Tamaccio moves into 13th fastest, just ahead of Peroni and Stefano Zerbi, who I caught up with as well on Thursday evening, and looking to enjoy the show this weekend. But he, of course, commenting that the changeable conditions have been tricky to manage because they're trying to work out the best course of action through the course of this weekend, and especially for those AM drivers, it's going to be a bit of a test. Nunes now was in 7th fastest, now has since dropped down. Larzanen going purple in the first sector. Of course, back again out on circuit, looking for a big result once again this time around for Q1 Track Racing Porsche, as he now sprints through the middle sector and very shortly into that stadium section, coming in towards turns 9 and 10 as Canizares moves into 7th fastest ahead of Peroni.
So Larzanen has a little bit of traffic in front of him on this lap. It's the Ferrari 296, number 80 car from Mertel Motorsport, home race for them this weekend. And that's the car that right up until the second race at Spa hadn't managed to score any points all year for one reason or another, despite being the sort of leading entry from Mertel, so to speak, with 2 silver class drivers aboard. Zanen goes up to 2nd fastest behind H. De Mello. So we're still building up towards the pace. It's a 1:42.327. That is the time to beat at the moment.
I mean, the last time we arrived here at Hockenheimring back last year, it was, of course, Mertel that were picking up all the plaudits, really, aside from what happened in race 1, but they were pole twice running and then had a victory in the second race with Luca Ludwig and Ivan Velasco taking the checkered flag.
The less said about that first race.
It was a bit of a
the better, really. It was a bit of an awkward day for the Mertel camp. This is Antoine Berberic, who's now fastest in the first sector, currently 7th fastest, and he managed to get his first podium last time out at Spa as well. Not bad for this young kid who's in his first year of racing.
It's been pretty positive display. He was right in the thick of the action back at Spa last time as well. Currently now 8th fastest, as we now watch him make his way through the final sector now. Sachs curve lies in wait as he now just a breakdown coming into this very tricky left-hander, very dogged. You need to keep feathering that throttle for the exit coming out of that Sachs corner at turn 13. Well, then heading through 14, 15, 16, 17 still to come. Heavy on the throttle again as he looks to put the power down. Still purple coming out of that middle sector, and now needs to topple Franvel Bugliotti. Stina's Longin goes into 5th fastest. Here comes Berberic Martini, who now crosses the line. Currently registered 9th fastest at the moment, but seemingly...
Well, he's done a 1:41.6.
Should be the fastest time, really, on paper. Apparently, he has had a time deletion for track limits at turn 1, by all accounts, so that will mean...
spot.
That, so unfortunately he's dropping down to P10 now. But still a good display of pace in the latter 2 sectors, so there is positives to take away from it.
Turn 1 is the real action spot for track limits this weekend. Another of the Mertel Ferraris, the number 83 crew, Matteo Lovisi, Davide Larini, who is qualifying the car at the moment. It's Davide Larini, he's currently fastest of the silver class runners, son of Nicola Larini, the DTM champion, former Grand Prix driver as well. And that is one of the 488 Challenge Evos. So of the 6 Ferraris, there are 4 488s and 2 296. Stina's Longin, who was the pace setter in FP1 yesterday, on a good lap here. 2 purple sectors, the pro in that Pro-Am entry, and of course before the introduction of the silver class last year, was fighting for the overall championship along with Nicolas Salins in that Q1 run machine. They do remain one of the top teams in this championship, the Belgian outfit based in Drijbekenweg. This is a good lap from Stina's Longin then, and he now goes fastest, a 1:41.463 for the Belgian driver.
Immediately taken away, though, by Berberic Martini, who now goes to the top as well. There's the car belonging to Dieter Schweppes, and dearie me.
Yeah, there you can see how little grip there is on the drag strip.
Well, it was funny. I was talking to Nicholas van Dierendonk a little bit about this during free practices. Luca De Marchi goes into 3rd, Larzanen 5th, Franvel Bugliotti now dropping down to 4th. But yeah, I was chatting to Nicholas van Dierendonk, who mentioned that for the young drivers getting acclimatized to Hockenheimring, the biggest mission for them is really just to manage themselves a little bit through the course of the race, because if you put the power down too early and start using and abusing the tyres, very early on. The big factor around Hockenheimring is that degradation is certainly the talking point, especially when it comes to race time later on. So we will be seeing who can manage it better, especially should the wet come cascading down as we watch Paul Meyer taking the opening stint in qualifying here this weekend. Of course, we'll be handing over to Laura van den Hengel for the second half of the first race of the weekend later on this afternoon. Is now Paul Meyer puts the throttle down now once again, looking to improve at the timing screen. Obviously now goes first fastest ahead of Burbrick Martini this time. It goes just over a tenth quicker than Martini. Here comes the championship leader, Ian Rodriguez, who immediately goes into third fastest as well. Unfortunately for Meyer, he has lost his fastest time due to track limits here this time around as well. Antoine Burbrick Martini, however, has found purple in that middle sector as we ride on board with him now in the Mertel Ferraris. I have said they have had already some reasonable success here. Mertel coming off the back of race 2 last year and going pole twice in succession as well last year too. Can they do it again? This time with Antoine Burbrick Martini, and does again go just under 2 tenths quicker off his last, well, certainly the last best we have seen already on the timing screen. That's a 1:41.270 for the silver driver.
That would be a first pole for the 296 challenge, wouldn't it, believe? Though, of course, a heavy balance of performance procedure, because we already had to load up the 488 with an awful lot of weight and restrict the grip as well to make it comparable to the Porsche Cup car. And the 296 challenge is about 2.5 seconds quicker than the previous car. So GT Sport doing a sterling job to keep those different machines on a level playing field. Oh, Rodriguez getting a snap of oversteer coming into the stadium section. Dips a wheel into the gravel as well for good measure, I think. And this lap that was turning into a provisional pole lap might now just be falling away now for the Fimes team. The former TCR driver still working his way around this final corner. Not TCR driver, excuse me. Prototype racer, I should say. Paul Meyer corrects the earlier wrongs and goes fastest with 2 purple sectors. Rodriguez stays in 4th.
Yeah, good lap for Paul Meyer, just to enter the first 140 to the timing screen now, 1:40.887, and is now just under 4 tenths faster than Antoine Burbrick Martini. So stellar time by Paul Meyer for the Burgers Motorsport team. As we said, replacing that car, which fortunately the one before it had seen better days after race 2 at Portimao, but the new car that they brought in for Spa certainly did flourish with the Pro-Am victory in race 1. Was nailing their second Pro-Am win in the 4 races that they have taken part in so far this campaign, as Nunez pops into 11th fastest instead of Lavati. So that is Pro-Am 3rd fastest as it stands, with our current leading Am Franvale Bugliotti still. Longoni goes into 14th ahead of Tamaccio, and 2 seconds away from Paul Meyer right at the top of the shop. Burbrick Martini in the pits as it stands. Just looking across this grid now, just seeing if there's any further green sectors. There are a couple starting to pop up as Nathan Braun's pops into 6th fastest. We'll of course be handing over to Van Dierendonk later on, and he now turns himself into the fastest Am here now with just over 5 minutes and 30 to go.
Even ahead of some of the silver class drivers. Very impressive from Nathan Braun's in his 2nd season here in GT Cup, having moved over from VW Fun Cup. Paul Meyer still on a very good lap here, fastest in the middle sector. Drives up towards the timing line, and let's see where this is going to put him, if this is going to be a further improvement. Wow, found a lot of time in that final sector, didn't he? And so now puts himself nearly half a second clear of Antoine Burbrick in that Hans Weiss Motorsport run car, the team that Paul Meyer joined a few years ago, now back in 2021 for some local racing, the BMW M240 Cup, and has raced with them in the Carrera Cup Benelux last year as well, which was the team's first year running Porsche Cup machinery. You wouldn't know it, just looking at the results that they've been able to pull in, but also racing for Seb Lejeune in the Creventic series. This is on board with Ian Rodriguez, who's fighting back. He's up on Paul Meyer's time in the first sector here. Around the hairpin we go. The rear engine Porsche in that straight line traction zone can absolutely fire off of the hairpin, tip it into the right-handed kink, and back on the brakes again for turn number 8. Ian Rodriguez, the Guatemalan 24-year-old, in a full season campaign now in the GT Cup.
Oh, got Paul Meyer for company as well, who currently
The
of course
irony.
leads the way. Incredible. He has lost a little bit of time, quite a bit of time in that middle sector as Rodriguez. He's actually nearly 3/10 off. Coming out of the middle now, coming down into Sachs curve, so cautious of the brakes, I'm sure, but again, just comfortably rounds the turn, but has now got a few more corners to take. Franvel Bugliotti actually just in front of him as well as he now comes through the final couple of corners. So here comes the 91, of course, current championship leader Ian Rodriguez, partnering up with Luca Franca through the course of the weekend once again. We'll be handing over to him during the mid part of the first race as well. Unfortunately, no improvements in that final sector for Ian Rodriguez to trouble Paul Meyer about, but Paul Meyer could be on the cusp here of taking 3 poles in 3 of his qualifying stints, as now once again the 911 really having some problems out there today.
Leandro Martins just looping the LMR car around at the hairpin. Of course, LM is Leandro Martins, new team for this year. Not a new car though, used to be run by Rackar. Ian Rodriguez getting a great tow down the straight here. Let's see if the LMR car moves out of the way. Yes, it did, but Rodriguez backed out of the lap anyway, much earlier. And so now this is going to get very confusing down here. They're nearly touched. They're just trying
Very
to
close.
after you. No,
Paul
after
Meyer
you.
also in the mix of this too. So
Is he on a lap?
Paul-
21.8 in the first sector. It's not an improvement, but it's decent.
it's requisite of what we would expect from
yes,
a fast run.
I don't think this is going to be any sort of lap, especially now.
No.
Let's see. We've got 2 minutes left on the clock.
He wants the toe of Paul Meyer. That's what he wants.
Timing screen's very wide to the moment. Tommaso Lavati's done a personal best first sector. He's in 13th place at the moment. That number 82 Mertel car, one of the 488 challenge cars. It's the Pro-Am entered machine. I believe that's the one just coming through the picture now, actually. No, that's the 83.
Oh, we got a
spin.
car off. That's the 54, and that belongs to Luigi Peroni, who is currently sat in the grass, now returning to the circuit this time around. He's going to have to try and get that grass off the tyre as well and get the heat back into them in order to ensure that he has got the grip coming out of these corners, and it's so key around Hockenheimring as well. This is what happened, just the rear getting away from him, and unfortunately, pirouette in the car, he just reversed into that gravel, managed to clear the circuit before the other cars came in, before then rejoining. But the compelling matter is now we're coming into the final couple of minutes. They've got essentially maybe 1 or 2 laps. I was going to say Paul Meyer's has come into the pits. They were manacled together with Rodriguez and Meyer, so looking to close out the session with perhaps a tussle for pole position to bring the clock down to 0, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case with Meyer now in the pits.
So it's pro runners in the top 5 as it stands, a combination of Pro-Am and Silver Class cars. Nathan Bronson, Franville Bugliotti, really got only a tenth of a second between the top 2 in the AM category, and they're ahead of 2 other Silver Class drivers, Luca Dimarchi and Lars Zanen. So that's a really, really impressive qualifying from both Nathan Bronze in the Q1 track racing car and Franville Bugliotti in the GDL run Porsche, as again we see Ian Rodriguez trying to put a lap together. I don't think this is going to be the one either. 2 tenths, or nearly 3 tenths down in the first sector. You can see the sort of muck on the apex of turn number 9 that the touring car drivers were picking up and dragging across the circuit this morning. Again, wrestling that car as he re-enters the stadium section. Now 8 tenths down in the middle sector. So it looks like this is just going to be third fastest as we count down now towards the checkered flag, which is now out. And Rodriguez, is he going to be bringing that car into pit lane? Yes, he is. And so the Guatemalan third fastest in this session. And big smiles from Laura van den Hengel on the right. Big smile from Paul Meyer as well. There he is, because he's fastest in the session.
Absolutely delighted, I'm sure. And then that is 3 poles in successive qualifyings for Paul Meyer as well. A wonderful performance to lift his car to the top once again, and will give them a great chance ahead of their first race coming up later on. They've come so close to an overall win, have Burgers Motorsport. Laura van den Hengel came so close on the final corner, incidentally, at Portimao. It looked like they could have had an opportunity to lift in the overall victory aloft, but they'll have another great chance at it this time around here in Hockenheimring, especially when conditions are going to throw the odd curveball around, Chris.
Absolutely, but for me, the Spa one was the most impressive. The spin to the win.
Yeah.
That was unbelievable.
Unbelievable
And
performance.
I was talking to Paul Meyer about it. I saw him last weekend in Portimao. He was racing with the Seblejoux squad, and I hadn't actually caught up on the races at that point, so he was telling me all about it. And it was great to have a chat with him. And he's just really the benchmark in this championship at the moment is Paul Meyer. And Laura van den Hengel coming along very nicely as well as a bronze driver. But shout out as well, Antoine Berberek. That is an astonishing performance, and the best we've seen from the 296, I believe, so far this year as well, starting on the front row of the grid in only his... So what did he do? He did one race with Luca Ludwig in the GT Winter Series and then came into GT Cup. So he's doing a smashing job out there.
Certainly is. Here are the qualifying results to open up the morning. Paul Meyer is, of course, your pole sitter. 3 times in succession for Paul Meyer on pole position for Burgers Motorsport. Antoine Berberek Martini in second. Ian Rodriguez in third as well. Stinas Longin in fourth for Q1 Track Racing. Davide Larini in fifth for Mertel Motorsport. Nathan Braun's top of the AMS and 6th fastest overall for Q1 with Franvel Bugliotti in 7th place. Luca Damarchi in 8th. Lars Zanen in 9th. H. de Mello in 10th place as well for GDL Racing Porsche. We then move down to 11th spot with Diego Nunez in that spot, along with Ludovico Longoni in 12th place. Tommaso Lavati down in 13th with Giacomo Giobergia in 14th. Luca Maria Attinesi in 15th, and then Angelo Tomarcio in 16th. Davide Scanicchio for Tsunami RT. Of course, he'll be aligned with Fabio Babini later on. 17th place, Manuel Canizares for Mertel in 18th. Sebastian Fortuna and EBI Motors in 19th as well, with Leandro Martins and LMR Motorsport, who had a couple of spins in the session, looking to recover in the race. Luigi Peroni in 21st, and Stefano Zerbi last of the runners at the moment. But a stellar performance for Paul Meyer. But a wonderful display, brilliant display, certainly. There is our championship leader, of course, Ian Rodriguez, who will be aligned with Luca Franca. And marvellous performance there in third. Of course, Antoine Berberek Martini coming home second fastest at the moment. Wonderful display from Antoine Berberek Martini, one of his better qualifying performances of the season. But our pole sitter, of course, Paul Meyer, will be lining up alongside Laura van den Hengel to kick off the weekend in Hockenheim in the GT Cup Europe Championship. But do join us later on this afternoon at 5 to 3 local time. We'll see you then. Goodbye.